Happy Monday, friends. I am really excited to bring you this shorter episode because I am more excited to get outside the second I get off of the microphone. I have been dreaming of this sort of little bit of a brick workout today. It's usually my cross training day, but I kind of feel like going for a run because it is so hot outside and I love a good hot run. And most people probably think that's crazy. That's okay. I just am genuinely so pumped to go outside and hit the pavement. And as I have dreamt of this workout today, I was really thinking about my hydration beforehand because it is a reality that when you are working out in the sun, you are losing more fluids. And what most people think is drink more water, but that is actually backwards. You need electrolytes. And as I started to think about my own strategy with electrolytes, I realized how little people probably actually know about electrolytes. Everybody's heard of a Gatorade, and I think stereotypically we grow up knowing that a Gatorade or a sports nutrition drink is best when you're in a really sweaty environment, but they're actually not the best. Really, just true electrolytes are what you need, and the sugary drinks are not. And I'll talk about mainly the source I use because it's my favorite and I think it's the best. But first, you have to just understand what electrolytes are. And I think everybody, maybe this is dumb, maybe everybody knows what electrolytes are, but I don't think most people do. I think they just hear electrolytes and they think drink like sodium when you need to refuel after sweating. But once you understand the chemistry of it, you can understand the physiology of it, and then you can understand why the body and the brain both need them. And I think that's important when you're trying to set goals and be a better person. Understanding what it's doing on a biological level can often help build that motivation to do it on a psychological level. So basically today we're going to talk about electrolytes and the myth on salt. So salt was largely pushed out in health scare way. It was seen as salt was what was causing people to be obese, to be heart problems. That's what they were saying. And I truly believe that the bigger impact was how people were getting their salt, which was mostly through processed food. And if you're a person who doesn't eat processed foods, odds are you're actually deficient in salt. You're deficient in sodium. And I think everybody, for a large part, is deficient in an electrolyte, whether it be sodium or not. Sodium is obviously the easiest to get because of our diets, mainly out of processed food. Because salt is a preservative, and so all the packaged foods have plenty of salt in them to help them be shelf stable. But that sodium is kind of useless if you don't have the other electrolytes. So let's just start at the most basic level. What are electrolytes? They are minerals that have an electric charge when they are dissolved in water or your body, including your blood. The electric charge is either positive or negative. Think back to chemistry. You got ions, you got cations, anions, you got all these different, when the positive and negative charges bond together. That's what we're thinking here. Think of the science and it'll make sense why it then produces the physiological result of performance enhancement. What we do is we lose electrolytes throughout the day. You lose them in sweat and urine, and then we try to get them back in through our diet, but some of them are really hard to get back in just by eating alone. Magnesium especially is the one that most people are deficient in, and it's because in order to get the amount of daily intake magnesium that a normal average person needs, not even talking about an athlete who loses excess electrolytes, a normal average person would need to eat like 4 to 5 ounces of nuts a day, or 2 cups of spinach, which is much more attainable, but the 4 to 5 ounces of nuts would then boost your caloric intake by about 1,000 calories, and you'd be in trouble then on another health basis. You may have enough magnesium, but you'll be in a surplus, and that's not great either all the time. So basically, magnesium's really hard to get. Potassium is another one. You'd have to eat like 6 to 8 bananas a day to get the daily intake of potassium. So it's really hard to basically get everything we need for electrolytes in our diet, especially because when it is hot outside, you are losing them more. So basically, on a basic workout front, if you work out for about an hour and you sweat, you work up a sweat, you lose 1 gram of sodium. And if you go in the summer, you can lose up to 7 grams per hour. And that's a huge deficiency then, if you're sucking yourself dry for weeks on end in the summer. So most people think they're walking around hydrated because they drink a lot of water, but if you're not taking in a high quality electrolyte supplement and definitely not eating all the healthy foods that you should be, you're certainly deficient in an electrolyte. And that creates a problem. So what do electrolytes do for us? Your cells use electrolytes to conduct electrical charges. Again, hence electrolytes, which is how your muscles contract. So the sodium and the potassium, for example, they are constantly going in and out of your cells or of your blood vessels as they travel through. So this in and out of the sodium and potassium, sodium positive, potassium negative, the switch between the two means that there's always an electrical charge going on. So when this switch happens within the cells within your muscle tissues, think your bicep contracts and it gets bigger, contracts and it gets bigger. And this is all like how working out works. You stretch those muscle fibers and then they go back, and then you stretch them again and then they go back. And this happens when you have an adequate amount of electrolytes to do this within the muscle. That same electrical charge also helps with chemical reactions, especially when it comes to hydration and the balance of fluids inside and outside of your cells. The key principle that electrolytes rely on is that certain chemical elements naturally hold that positive or that negative charge. When those elements are dissolved in a liquid, that liquid can conduct electricity. An example of this is salt water, which conducts electricity easily. Salt consists of sodium, positive charge, and chlorine, negatively charged. When combined, their charges balance each other out. When they are dissolved in water, those are split apart, allowing them to be positive and negative, which creates that unstable amount of electrons, and so they're working back and forth, which creates the electrical charge. Dissolving salt water splits them apart, which means they go back to being positively and negatively charged by themselves. Electricity, or the electrons, bounce back and forth between them as they sort of fight over them. That's because they have the opposite charges. At the most basic level, this helps your body maintain balance. Just like electricity uses ions to travel from one place to another, your cells use this electricity bounce to communicate with each other and move stuff and transport chemical compounds in and out of the cells. So without electrolytes, minerals don't move throughout your body. Other things that you need, like iron, calcium is an electrolyte, but those things, those minerals, don't get transported to where they're needed most. What this creates is you're just flushing out everything you get. If you're just drinking water and water and water, none of those minerals are being absorbed because there isn't a need for them. So water, if you can think back to chemistry class, water moves from a low solute solution to a high solute solution. What is that high solute solution filled with? Sodium, potassium, electrolytes. So if you don't have any electrolytes, you're always, like, inside and outside of your cells is the same density of solution. And so the water isn't going to move in and out, and it's not going to go into your cells. It's just going to go straight through you, and you'll excrete it in urine. But if you have electrolytes, that water will be pulled into cells or pulled out of cells, depending on where the balance needs to be. And that means your body is truly being hydrated because the water is going places. It's not just going straight through you and washing out things that you actually needed. So 8 basic things that your electrolytes do, to sum up that whole paragraph, is they balance the water in your body. They balance your acidic level. Think pH. A high pH solution is highly electrical. It can conduct electricity very well. And so the electrolytes allow for your body to have that capacity to create an electrical current. It moves nutrients into your cells or out of your cells. It moves waste out of your body. It supports muscle and nerve function. You don't have as many cramps because your muscles are contracting efficiently. It keeps your heart rate steady. It keeps blood pressure stable. And the calcium component, as well as some magnesium, is it keeps your bones and teeth healthy. So 7 types of electrons. We obviously have covered sodium. Sodium regulates plasma volume, your fluid balance, your muscle contractions, and your nerve impulses. Potassium is that next one. K+, I always remember the chemical symbol. It manages your pH balance, your neuromuscular activity, cellular growth, osmotic equilibrium, and cardiac function. Calcium, neuromuscular function, enzymatic processes, and heart rhythm. Phosphorus is that fourth type. It is for energy metabolism, phosphorylation, pH balance, and cell structure. Magnesium, which I think most people are deficient in, it is involved in 300 enzymatic reactions, which deals with proteins, bone mineralization, neuromuscular activity, and cardiac function. And chloride is the last one, and it is cellular fluid balance, pH balance, and neuromuscular activity. So you can see that a lot of them share the same sort of functions, but they need each other to do them. So now that you know what an electrolyte is, you know how they work, you know what they do for you, what are some signs that you're deficient? For me personally, the muscle cramping is where I first go, oh, I'm low in potassium, I'm low in sodium. I get these wicked hand cramps where my hand just sucks in and it'll just stay there. It'll be stuck there for like 3 minutes. And when I start getting those, I know that it used to be I thought I'm just dehydrated and I would go drink water. It's an electrolyte imbalance because my muscles are stressed out and they don't have the things they need because I haven't given them anything but water. So some other signs of low electrolyte levels are fatigue, brain fog, headache, nausea, blood pressure changes, low energy, and simply not feeling well. I think oftentimes we think of those symptoms as just being dehydrated, which means people go and drink water, where I think the fact is that you actually don't need more water, you need the electrolytes. And so the water can help aid getting in the electrolytes, but I think we sort of need to think the next time you feel dehydrated, think electrolytes first and then the water to help aid as a vehicle to get the electrolytes in. Without electrolytes, you're still dehydrated. We almost overdrink water. Literally, I think of how many times I see people like drinking so much water, and it's great, and you're going to the bathroom like 27 times a day, and that's great for your body to flush out waste, but it's also flushing out all the things you need. And so if you aren't thinking, I need to supplement with some electrolytes within this water, you're gonna be still behind and you're sort of working against yourself. I like to think of it as a 1 to 3 for me because I do sweat a lot in my workouts. So I try to do a 1 to 3 ratio of electrolytes to water. So if I've had 3 blender bottles of water, the next one needs to have some electrolytes. And I usually do about 2 packets of my electrolytes a day. And I use Element, LMNT, literally. I'm not sponsored, would love to be someday, but it's the best one. There was a big scam that, I don't know if scam's the right word, legal argument, whatever, about a year ago that said that they had sugar in them. The sugar is maltodextrin, and it's not like a real, it's basically a digestible fiber, and so it doesn't actually impact you like sugar. But the thing is that you actually do need some sort of sugar for your body to use the electrolytes, because the whole idea of electrolytes is to create energy, and what does that? Carbohydrates. And so also sugar in a small amount is necessary for an electrolyte to be effective. And what's special about Element is that they are 1,000 milligrams of sodium in one little packet. So you're thinking, wow, 1,000 milligrams of sodium is a lot. And maybe for somebody who is eating a bunch of processed food, it is. But if you are a person who doesn't eat very much processed food, you actually need the sodium. You do. Especially if you are sweating. Again, I just told you that in an hour of a run outside, you can lose anywhere from 1 gram of sodium to 7 grams, depending on how salty of a sweater you are. And you can tell how salty of a sweater you are is if you're a person who gets white on your hat or on your clothes while you're sweating. If you can visibly see the salt once you get done with the workout, you need a lot of sodium. And when that's the case, you need more sodium than you can probably get in your healthy diet. If you want to go eat a whole bag of Cheez-Its, which we keep going back to, that would be probably enough sodium for you, but it will also be way too many carbs and way too much fat that you need in a day. And so the better alternative is something like Element, which is amazing tasted. I love salty things, and so I think it tastes incredible. They have all sorts of flavors, but they have sodium, potassium, magnesium, which are the 3 crucial electrolytes. And basically that's 1 gram of sodium in each packet. And if I do 2 of those a day, I feel so much better. I also sweat more, which means that my body is efficiently saturated in electrolytes, that it has more to give. If you become a person who sweats more, that means your body is becoming more efficient. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a good thing because your body is better at cooling you down because you are sweating more. So without electrolytes, you're still dehydrated because you are diluting the salt in your blood. And an interesting thing, this was in one of the Element articles that they produced because they have done so much science to prove their electrolyte works, because there is a scam out there of like, there are some electrolytes that are not actually doing what they say they're doing for you. And so the whole supplement industry is something you have to be careful with. You want to get a trusted source, which honestly means paying more money. But if it's for your health, I think it's worth it. But no athletes have died from dehydration. They've never had an athlete in any sport die and then they blamed it on dehydration. But they have had athletes die from low sodium in their blood, or a low sodium concentration, which is called hyponatremia. And basically this is saying that water has moved out all the sodium from your cells, and now you just have water in you with no minerals. And that's how your body functions. Your body needs more things. And so there have been people who have died from, and you can look up, they have a different word for every spectrum. If you're low sodium, high sodium, low magnesium, high magnesium, there's all these terms of hypo and hyper depending on which direction you are. And the thing that I think is most interesting is if you have too much sodium, the symptoms are often the same as if you have too little sodium. Same thing with magnesium and calcium. Too much calcium, too little calcium have the same sort of symptoms. And so I think there comes to be a due diligence on your own end to know what you're deficient in. I think for most people, simply just trusting your doctor to tell you what you need is not a good approach. When you get labs done, look at your labs. And today, with the resources of AI and just Google, there is no reason you should not be able to know what your doctor is going to tell you before you walk in the doctor's office. I'm not saying the doctors should be discounted for their efforts or for their support, but I think if you're going to a doctor just to read you your blood results, they're not a good doctor. You shouldn't be paying them. A good doctor is going to help you capitalize on the information that you could just Google yourself. So I get blood work done pretty routinely to check my levels of sodium, to check my levels of magnesium. That way I know what I need to supplement with, because you don't want to just start supplementing things that you don't think you're deficient in. So that was a little side rant, but I think it's important to be able to educate yourself on your own health, not rely on somebody else. It's not like accounting. You shouldn't do that either, but a lot of people will treat their accountant as just the one person to rely on their finances for. You should understand your own finances, and you should also understand your own health, but still use those people who are more educated in it to advise you and capitalize and make your efforts better, but also not just read you what a paper says that you could plug into Google and get the answers for. The last thing with electrolytes is another benefit of it. It's just that you will feel better and feel more energized because of electrolytes. Obviously, sodium and potassium are electrolytes. And if you can go back to your chemistry days, the cell operates within the membrane of the cell membrane. There is a sodium-potassium pump. And what this does is it's essentially an active transport to move the proteins in and out. It's powered by ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and it pushes 3 sodium ions out and pulls 2 potassium ions in. This creates the electrochemical gradients needed for nerve impulses, heart contractions, and fluid regulation across all of your cells. Because these minerals are positive and negative when dissolved in your body, they allow electricity to flow freely. This electrical transfer creates energy. It doesn't really create energy, I shouldn't say that. It creates the idea of energy. It's not causation, it's correlation. And so why you feel more energized when you are hydrated, meaning both in water and in electrolytes, is because your nerve signaling, your muscle movement, your heart rhythms, and your fluid balance are all aligned because of electrolytes. That is how crucial they are. The last thing I wanted to touch on is because it would be great if we could all just eat enough healthy foods to get our electrolytes. I don't think for most people that's possible, again, because it's just hard. But the best sources of each of these electrolytes are sodium, being dill pickles, bone broth, cottage cheese, which is my favorite. It is sodium packed and it just tastes good. You can disagree with me. But cottage cheese and sea salt, those are your best options for sodium. Also just table salt. Sodium chloride, which is table salt, it will split into the positive and negative charge and it'd be used in the same way that sodium and potassium do. Potassium, bananas, sweet potatoes, coconut water, which is a great natural or at-home DIY electrolyte drink. Coconut water has sodium, potassium, and then you can add in some other things like some honey. I think some people will add in like some powdered milk or like whey protein to get the calcium in there. And you could make your at-home brand of an electrolyte drink. And if you like coconut, if you like the taste of coconut, coconut water is a great option. There are just carbs and some sugar in there, so just balance that with the rest of your intake. Magnesium, spinach, my favorite source, pumpkin seeds, almonds, black beans. Calcium is probably the easiest to get. Greek yogurt, milk, and sardines. Sardines don't sound fun, but because you are eating the little bones of fish, great calcium, great vitamin D supplement. Highly recommend if you break your leg. I still swear that was crucial in my recovery. Chloride, you can get in olives, tomatoes, sea salt, and then phosphorus, chicken, scallops, pumpkin seeds, and lentils. The three that most people are deficient in are the three that are included in that element drink, and it is sodium, potassium, and magnesium. So with that, I'm just excited to go outside and sweat and then have my element afterwards. I also love, here's a couple of my fun element recipes to give you inspiration to go buy it and enjoy it. So Element makes all the fruity flavors, which are great. I will sometimes do a smoothie with the Element in it. So I'll do spinach and a little bit of almond milk or just water, and then do my Element packet. And it's a nice way to get my greens in. It's a nice way to get hydrated, and it's nice and cool after a run. And it's another drink. It's just a better way. Otherwise, Element tastes great in water. There's a lemonade version, and the lemonade version is really good in a glass of iced tea and literally make like a salty Arnold Palmer, because that's my favorite thing about Element. I think Liquid IV is a little too sweet. Element has that salty forefront flavor, and I like salty things, and it really makes you feel like you're getting something out of it. My last recipe idea is a salty coffee. So Element makes a version of hot drinks. The only one I would not recommend is there is a chocolate sriracha one, and it's literally like spicy, but you're supposed to drink it hot. And I'm a spicy person, and it was not great. But feel free to try it. It's an experience. My favorite is they make a chocolate salt one, which if you drink it in hot water, or in hot milk in the winter, it's really good. It's like a hot chocolate. I like to make a wicked iced coffee with it. And so I actually do the hot coffee, dissolve the chocolate salt Element packet in it, and then I water it down with some ice water if I'm going for a cold brew, or some almond milk if I want more like a latte, and it is so good. It is literally like a kind of bitter, salty coffee, and you'll have to just try it and let me know what you think, because I think it's great, but my palate's kind of skewed to just whatever I make. So those are my ideas for getting your electrolytes in a little bit more of a fun way. There are lots of electrolyte companies. You can try all sorts of them and see which ones you like. That's just the brand I use, and the one that is probably the most scientifically backed, I would argue. But with that, I'm going to go on a great run and a great bike ride. I hope that you guys get your workout in today, or even just some steps with the family. Sundays are a day of rest, but that doesn't always mean that they can't be jam-packed with things you love. The Sabbath is anything that makes you delight in the Lord. So delight in the Lord today, and just have a beautiful week, and we'll see you back here next week. And until then, starve the lies, build your body, fortify your mind, stay hungry, stay hydrated, and electrified. Yeah, that works. Stay hydrated and electrified. And as always, guys, stay unsatisfied. See you next week.